Welcome to Decoding Devy, episode 3. I am Brandon Haye at HayB3, and we're bringing in another Brandon, so double the fun, double the Brandon, Brandon Sanders. You can find him at Brandon T. Sanders on Twitter, and he's the creator, owner of CFFUniversity, and the host of the CFFU podcast presented by Prize Picks. Thanks, Brandon, for joining.
Thanks for having me on, man. This is pretty fun. I get to just sit down and talk college football. We kind of take it from a fantasy perspective, but essentially that's what Devy's doing is just, getting guys ahead of time and then putting them on the roster ahead of time. So it's always cool to have this, same type of collegiate football type situation, but have two separate minds and two separate categories as far as like fantasy football and how it's played. It's a beautiful thing, man.
Yeah, so that's a good point. So obviously, on the fantasy side in college, it's all about the production. It's not always about the players that are going to reach the next level and everything. Do you play a dynasty fantasy football in NFL too?
I did, yeah. My background is I came from the original writers from the Fantasy Footballers, of course, Andy, Mike, and Jason, great dudes. But it was redraft, and then I started digging into Dynasty. I heard of the greatness that was, and at the time, the footballers weren't doing any Dynasty content, so I reached out to my friend Rich Dotson, who's at the Dynasty Nerds. So he offered me a spot there, and that's where I kind of dug in deep. And of course, I wanted to get better at rookie drafts. So it's like, all right, I was finding some diamonds in the rough and stuff like that. But I was like, how can I really get good at it? So then I started looking around, and all of a sudden I start seeing, guys you probably know of like John Lobb and a few of the ones that kind of pop up in the Twitter feed. They actually do college fantasy football and have been doing it for multiple years. So I found that very intriguing, and that you could play college fantasy on the college level. So why wouldn't I want to play fantasy football Saturday and Sunday? And sometimes now, like with Mac and stuff like that, I can play fantasy football from Tuesday through Sunday. So sometimes Monday with the Monday night games. It's glorious. So I was like, well, shoot, I'll get good at rookies and stuff like that. But here I am now several years later, and now I'm in, a dynasty league in college fantasy football. So here I am looking at high school seniors and stuff like that. So the struggle never dies, man. You just keep getting deeper and deeper in the rabbit hole. But yeah, man. But the good thing is, like, doing fantasy, you do see the ones. It's called the eye test, and when you see the eye test, you notice that like some of these guys stand out better than the rest, and they have that pedigree. I'd say like my famous one was seeing this kid from Eastern Washington whose name was Cooper Kupp, and got him in a third round of Dynasty, and he blew up. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's cool to see those guys at the FCS and FBS level before they even get to the pros, man. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, those are all like great points. And what you're bringing up, diving more into college, especially this year for me, I've seen a lot more players, on the MAC level and all these different teams that, I knew about obviously all these teams, but I know more in depth the players, and I think that can only help you on the NFL side, dynasty wise. And another question I wanted to ask you before we really got into anything, for some of the casual, college football fans that are more on the NFL side that play, fantasy football and dynasty, they just see some of these players with the huge stats, fantasy wise, for CFF, kind of like a Mo Ibrahim and everything. And it's just interesting because those guys don't always make it in the NFL. Like they could have these crazy stats, and that's where, watching the games and be more into fantasy, you can understand, you want this guy for college fantasy, like a Mo Ibrahim, players like that. But they always, sometimes the NFL isn't looking just for those stats. They're looking for, transferable traits. So that's definitely another, great thing, because you can pile up all those stats in college, and you would think, those players would still have a place in the NFL, but we've seen it so many times. I'm a Michigan fan, so like Mike Hart, he was great in college, but like hardly ever saw the field in the NFL just because he didn't have the size and the speed.
Yeah. It's the same like you're talking about. Like we'll talk about Bailey Zappi, who's become QB1 in CFF. Western Kentucky, unless you really deep dive into them, like for us in CFF, that's like a gold mine. Seeing these guys go up against UTSA in one of the conference games, it's a dream come true, and I'm excited to see it. But people from Devy or people that are maybe scouting, Bailey Zappi just got, the Reese's Senior Bowl. He got invited. So it's cool to see people like that get their time to shine. But we all know Bailey Zappi, unless injury occurs or something like that, he's a backup QB. Like he's not meant for the league. You got your guy there, Cade McNamara. I think does well for the system that's in play with Michigan. You're letting your running backs run loose. I love Hassan Haskins. I think he could actually be a good late round RB. I don't think he would be a starting running back in the NFL, but here, once again, opportunity sees itself. He can turn into someone that's like, a Kareem Hunt or something like that, like a secondary running back in a good one with, next to like a Nick Chubb. And then boom, you have a 1-2, power punch running back. And, we don't even mention Blake Corum, whose future is looking bright there in Michigan. I mean, I'm stoked for you guys. I mean, that win last week was pretty amazing, man. I'm sure we'll talk about later in the show, but they got a good possibility of getting in the Final Four here. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, definitely. So now we'll move into some of the conference championships and kind of talk a little bit of the playoffs too.
Sure.
All right, there we go.
Nice.
Yeah. So, I just found out StreamYard allows you to upload these PowerPoints now. So that's what I was doing before the show. Yeah. So,
nice.
All right. So it's the biggest conference championship game, probably, most likely the biggest game this year. We've been waiting for it, as the season's been going on. Georgia's just steamrolled everyone really. Alabama's had their hiccup, against Texas A&M, and also, they had a close one against Arkansas. Yes. They haven't, and this game last week, which surprised me. I thought they were steamroll Auburn, and but it's another one of those rivalry games that you see. I kind of just threw up some of those stats. Point wise, they're about the same, but they couldn't be even more different on how they play offensively. And obviously, Georgia's defense is just amazing. They,
yes.
So I wanted to get.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to get your opinion, because I think the biggest thing most people are thinking is this great Georgia defense against this great Alabama offense, which is going to be a good battle. But I think it might be the opposite of how Alabama's defense, that hasn't been great, can play against this Georgia offense, because they're really going to need to keep that Georgia offense down, because you do wonder how many points Alabama can score in this game.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes, and I've said this on multiple podcasts, and I'll say it on yours, is like Georgia's playing on a whole nother level when it comes to defense. I see them beating the Detroit Lions and Jacksonville Jaguars. That's how good of a defense that I see them beating, that they can transcend easily. And a lot of these guys will wind up going to NFL very early rounds when it's time for them to come out. And it's going to be an easy get and then an easy transition into the NFL for some of these guys. But doing some digging and seeing like that, the people in the narrative is like, Alabama is gonna stay in it, and I think they will to a degree. But here's the takeaways, and something that with the digging and stuff like that. Although like Georgia is only ranked 27th overall in offense on there, they really haven't had to really go all out, because they really have been up the entire time most of the time. The only one that really gave them the scare was Tennessee, and they have a very high octane offense as well. So the good thing is that Alabama, is ranked 7th overall in offense. However, their passing defense is not doing so hot. They're 42nd overall in the FBS, and that's where we can see Stetson Bennett kind of find that leaky hole in the ship type situation. I think I don't know if we see the emergence of George Pickens, but I do see a Brock Bowers situation. He's been on fire the past couple of weeks, and I think that kind of keeps the ball rolling. I do think Alabama's going to start shutting down a lot of the run play that we see. So good old Zamir Zeus, and then we also have James Cook, the brother of Dalvin Cook, who I see as a great prospect coming out as well. Both of those guys are going to be limited, so it's going to come down to finding that exact that mismatch I like to look for in matchups and stuff like that. In fantasy, we're learning to look at the matchup, looking at the differences, and we look for the weakness, and that's the weakness is the passing defense of Alabama, and it's cost them a couple of times to the point to where they barely held on against Arkansas, and I don't think that was a mistake per se. Auburn, I see it as a scratch really, because it's the Iron Bowl. So I mean, like Auburn was going to try to come at them as hard as they possibly could go. However, they did, find that they can throw on Alabama. So that's what it's going to come down to. It's going to be interesting. It's probably, of course, the game of the week. So I'm really excited to see it. But I still think Georgia's going to win this one. I say probably by a touchdown, if I'm being honest with you. So.
Okay, yeah, those are all great points. And I was actually driving home. I was running some errands today, and I was listening to ESPN radio. Someone was calling in talking about Stetson Bennett and everything from the past. And I think one thing that'll be interesting is we've seen Stetson Bennett, I guess last year, where he did not look good against Alabama. But I think he's a different player now. He seems more comfortable,
He
and
does.
I think that's going to be a big change. And I just think the whole Georgia team's different in the way that defense plays. And he knows that, he just has to make, a handful of plays because they're going to try to run the ball, control the clock, play great defense. So, but I think the bigger thing is playoff wise, because I think that everyone knows if Alabama beats Georgia, they're both going to be in because Georgia that'll be first loss. Do you think if Georgia beats Alabama in a very close game, say a field goal, or even if it goes to overtime, can Alabama with 2 losses and not winning the SEC still get in the playoff?
This is where we go into a little bit of a personal opinion. So for everyone listening, just the personal opinion, the board loves Alabama. Let's just be honest. That it's a great school. It's Nick Saban. Who doesn't want? And the good thing is Alabama always produces a great game, especially against a lot of these teams that we see near the top. So like, guys like Michigan, guys like Georgia, against Ohio State, things like that. Like they can produce really good games that you want to see and stuff like that. Personally, I don't. I think an undefeated Cincinnati, if they can take down Houston this coming week, they are more deserving. I've been long for a G5 school to prove, tough enough to come up on these ranks and actually produce and be able to compete on this level. We did see Cincinnati take down the mighty Notre Dame, now losing their coach. So it's a little different story now. But back then with a Brian Kelly system, that's hard to go into Notre Dame and get that done. So that shows the power, that Cincinnati, and seeing the production of Jerome Ford and Desmond Ridder as far as both, prospects as well as fantasy players, to see them kind of rise to the occasion and get that done. So me personally, I don't like 2-loss teams in the playoffs. And if they expand next year or the next couple years, sure. Yeah, I could definitely see Alabama sticking in it. But do they deserve it? Me personally, no. But it might happen? It's possible. It's the committee. So that would probably be my vanilla answer without explicitives and 2-hour-long rants or anything like that. So
yeah, so we'll go into the rest of the games now. So obviously Michigan versus Iowa, I had probably one of the best days I've had in a very long time this past Saturday.
Oh man, that had to be awesome.
Michigan beat Ohio State.
Yes.
It was weird at the beginning of the week. I didn't feel great about the game, but as it started, ramping up, and then when I heard there was going to be snow, I really liked it. But I could not imagine that they would have won that handedly. I thought it was going to be
right.
Up until the end. So I was happy for Michigan. I was happy for Harbaugh to finally get over that hump. But this would truly be the most Michigan thing, finally beat Ohio State and lose to Iowa in the Big Ten championship game. So so I just want to, briefly talk about some of these games.
Sure.
Iowa, not a very good passing team.
Not at all, yeah.
Just a rushing team. They have a good defense. I personally – I would rather Michigan just, play their game and just blow them out. But I could see Michigan coming into this game thinking, hey, same thing against Ohio State. Let's just run the ball. Don't turn the ball over. Play good defense and just get out of here with a win. So it might be closer than most people might think, just the way that they approach it. But what is your kind of take, just quick take on this game?
So I do think Michigan needs to be very careful of Iowa, just because Iowa's been dropping as far as defensive rank, but they're still the 13th overranked defense in the country. I mean, they have the 14th best rushing defense. Now, I did love the scenario last week, the weather, the snow in Ann Arbor and stuff like that just played perfectly into a Hassan Haskins game. And like I said, I don't know, you might know more than I do, but if Corum is healthy and he's actually playing, which I don't see why he wouldn't, it's the championship game. But if Corum and Haskins both can do it, they're just going to completely just keep running. Even if it's the 14th ranked defense, Michigan knows how to tire their defense, and they just keep pounding at them with the occasional ones. I do see some McNamara kind of doing some short passes to Johnson. I think Johnson is a nice sneaky play, whether you're doing some DraftKings or if you're just looking for someone in a development system like Devy, where you're looking at Johnson as far as long term. He's definitely got the tangibles to get it done as far as being strong with his catching ability. So I do see him getting those 5 yards, going through the middle and stuff like that. So I think Michigan can get it done for sure, but they do need to be careful. The good thing is that Iowa ranks 123rd in the overall offense. So they're, other than Laporta, there's really not much Iowa is really producing out of the wide receiver or receiving core range. So as long as Michigan stays with the narrative and just keeps pressing Iowa as far as rush and the occasional pass, if they're in like a 3rd and short situation or a 2nd and short situation, this could be theirs. And I still think a 10-point narrative, I still think like a touchdown and a field goal. And I think Michigan can get it done for sure.
No, I definitely agree. I think the biggest thing with teams like this, the Iowas, the Wisconsins, even Northwestern type teams, if you let them hang around, you don't want to let them hang around for the whole game. And I think one of the biggest reasons Michigan beat Ohio State is they scored touchdowns when they got in the red zone. So I think they have to continue that against Iowa, because if they kick a bunch of field goals, then Iowa can stay in the game. I think that's the biggest thing. Now moving on to a game that doesn't really, I would assume, doesn't have any playoff implications with Oregon and Utah. They play again. Oregon yet again, shits the bed. I mean, they always seem to do this. They have a good enough team to win, 9-10 games, but when it comes down to winning a game to, get in the playoff, and this really helped Cincinnati by them losing. Who do you think will come away with this game?
Man, my gut tells me Utah. The defense is coming on strong with Utah. They've climbed up to the 16th best overall, and you're going up against Oregon, who's got a 99th ranked passing defense right now. So they are showing signs of weakness there against the pass. So I think we could see those 2 tight ends. I think it's Kuthi and I want to say it's Kincaid or one of the Kincaid or whatever. They're basically their top 2 with a little bit of sprinkling of Britton Covey in there. So I do think our boy Cameron Terra Rising which is a great prospect coming forward. I think he can get the job done. Oregon, it's going to be tough because you're going against the 25th, passing defense and then 24th rushing defense of Utah. So Oregon, unless it's Travis Dye catching it out the backfield, I think if he does a check down system, I think Dye can be productive. But if he's trying to just run straight at Utah, that's not happening. That's just not how this game is going to go, straightforward. And without losing Verdell, really it's just Dye and then their freshman or sophomore as their backup, and he's still in developing stages and stuff like that. So he's not ready for this big time thing like Dye has been in the past few years. So Anthony Brown is a really good game manager. So I think if he keeps the clock going and he can play keep away against Utah, I think that would probably be the best scenario for Oregon, is to keep it close. But I still say Utah by a field goal, like 3. I think it's -3 over in Las Vegas. So I'm going to kind of stick with Vegas's line there and kind of say Utah pulls this out. Just got a gut feeling there.
No, I agree. I agree with the Utah win. They pretty much dominated Oregon. Was that last week or is that a week before?
Yeah, it was a couple of weeks ago. They did the same
a couple
thing.
of weeks ago. I'm glad you brought up Rising. I wanted to get your opinion on him as a college fantasy player. Moving forward, they don't pass the ball a lot, but he can get games where he has 2 or 3 touchdowns. So on a fantasy type, college fantasy, he's obviously not someone you want to start every week. I guess if there's a bye, maybe, and you're in it, but but he probably doesn't have very much upside, correct?
Right. Yeah. If you're playing super flex and you're playing like a 2 or 3 QB, league, definitely. He's really more for a bye week. It's the thing with Utah is they're going to ground and pound. I mean, it's going to be our boy, I can't forget Thomas, I think, right? Tavian Thomas. They finally found their main guy. And once Utah finds their main guy and running back, whether that was like Booker or Zach Moss, who now is in the NFL, that person is really just going to transcend. And so Thomas is the one to look out for in the Utah system as far as Devy and for NFL rookie purposes when he comes out. Rising's really, he's got the tangibles. I think he's a little bit more than a game manager. He's not just someone that just runs the clock down. He just needs a wide receiver 1. Like, they really just need to recruit, this big. I think they just need, instead of these smaller guys like a Britton Covey, they need someone that's like 6'3", 6'4", 210, 215, just one of those like DK Metcalf type of receivers. If they can get one of those, I think Rising could probably find easier matchups over the top of the defenses there in the in the Pac-12, because until we might talk about a little bit this, but until Lincoln Riley can pretty much get USC the way he wants them, this is Utah's. I think this is their conference to run. Basically, they just need to get them a few more higher recruits, some bigger boys, and I think they could get it done. But yeah, they're definitely a run team first, and they've been like that for like 10 plus years, and I don't really see it changing unless there's this standout recruit that makes them change their ways, basically. So
no, I definitely agree. So the next one is the Big 12, Baylor versus Oklahoma State. Both teams are pretty good defensively. I want to get your take on this, and also I wanted to ask you, so say Georgia beats Alabama, and let's say Alabama's out of the picture for the top four. So, and say Michigan wins and say Cincinnati wins. So you got Georgia, Cincinnati, and Michigan. So if Oklahoma State wins, do you think they would be the fourth team in the playoff?
By process of elimination, yes, only because they've taken down Oklahoma, and they've already beaten Baylor once this year by like a good 10 points, and that was only like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I see the same scenario happening here, just because Oklahoma State's rocking that third overall defense in the FBS, so they're very strong. Our boy, I don't know if you call him Jerry or Gary, I just call him Gary Bohannon, but although he's got the tangibles as far as the run and pass, he's going to run into a brick wall, and Oklahoma saw that too. And then you saw Bedlam. So that's where we run into that scenario. I do see Oklahoma State kind of getting in. It really would be a long shot for like a team higher up or anything like that, because Oregon, if they fall, I mean, they're like what, 11th or 10th or something like that. There's no way they can jump that high. Guys like Pittsburgh and Wake Forest are too far down as far as ranking to kind of jump up that far to get in there. I do see Oklahoma State kind of getting here, which would be pretty awesome, because I don't know. It's been a long time since Oklahoma State's been remotely into like a true like number one championship game in a long time. So
yeah, definitely. I see Oklahoma State winning that game also. I was actually surprised that they won last week. I think even with that good defense, I just thought Oklahoma would be a little bit too much. And because I'm not a big believer in Spencer Sanders as a quarterback. Yeah. He's kind of, a manager, but he made some plays, and that defense came through. So next with Houston versus Cincinnati, this should be actually a pretty good game too. Houston has a very good offense. They had good receivers, good running game. Although I think Cincinnati's going to win this game. Do you think Cincinnati needs to win convincingly to get in the playoff, or do you think a win regardless, even if it's just by a field goal, would get them in?
Yeah. So when I saw this on the show sheet, I chuckled a little bit, because the past couple of podcast episodes that I've had guests on or been on somebody's, I've told them like, why hasn't Cincinnati played so like they're mad, because they've been, it's like they have to go over these hurdles every single time to get to where they're at. And now it's like they're at that one last spot. Nowadays, I don't think so. Against a team that's an hour down the road in ECU here near Greenville, North Carolina, they smashed the Pirates, and I was expecting maybe a closer game there. But it's now like that was like their convincing win that they need to give them that confidence. I think they kind of carry that confidence. Now Houston is still going to be decent. They're the 6th overall defense, so Houston's not going to give up much either. So it's going to come down to if Jerome Ford's truly healthy, can Ritter find Alec Pierce in the right matchup, things like that in particular as well. I think Cincinnati takes it just because we've seen the guts that they have, especially against a Notre Dame team who seems to be much tougher than Houston is. But I don't sleep on Houston, but I still think it's going to be pretty close, man. I'm going to say maybe a touchdown. I don't even think the 10.5 of Las Vegas is really that accurate. I think they should be under, because I think they're overestimating Houston, because I've seen them play a few times, and Clayton Tune's been actually really, really good as far as getting the ball down the field. They're, in the top 55 as far as offense. So it's not like they don't know what they're doing. So they have Nathaniel Dell, and then they also have McCaskill, who's the true freshman, who's going to be another good player to look at here for Devy's purposes as well. So I think it'll be a lot closer than we think. But I think Cincinnati doesn't need to really blow them out per se. I just think then it just needs just a W, just get it done. And then they can't deny them, because they're still undefeated. And there's, like I said, no reason for a 2-loss team to be in there when you have an undefeated team that's getting the job done, regardless. And Houston is a tough test. It's the second biggest test behind Notre Dame. So if they can get it done, I think they're deserving for sure.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Nathaniel Dell. I really like him.
He's good.
I've watched him, and he's just so quick with the ball, and he has that speed and that offense. And another year, he's a great fantasy producer in college, and I think he has some. He could get some Devy potential. With another good year, because the NFL is kind of moving towards those type of receivers, the speedier ones that can go deep and then catch it short and make some plays. So, lastly. I know there's other championship games, but the ones that I really care about, Pittsburgh versus Wake Forest in the ACC.
Oh
Who
man,
would have thought these two teams would be in the ACC championship?
not me being a Carolina fan. I thought it would be Clemson and Carolina, but preseason was dead wrong, wasn't it?
Yeah, totally wrong. So both of these teams are, they're offensively fun to watch. Wake Forest, I've had Sam Hartman in a league, in a regular college fantasy, and then a C2C league, and he puts up huge numbers. But I will say, if you watch him, sometimes, especially near the end of the season, he would have one or two bad throws a game that, against North Carolina, it cost them the game, with some of those costly interceptions.
Yep.
And their offense, it's just a weird offense, the way that they play. They play, they do those read options, but they do it so close to the line of scrimmage that the defenses have trouble with that. But and I've never been a big Kenny Pickett believer, but I mean this year he just keeps on doing it. So I'll be really interested in how the NFL kind of looks at him. So who do you think will win this one and get the ACC championship?
So first and foremost, this one's an over 72.5. So this is going to be a shootout extravaganza. This is ACC this year at its best. So if you're just looking for a good time and you just want to have a couple beers and just watch the points flow, this is the game to see for sure. Kenny Pickett has come such a long way, man. I've seen some stats to where like he went undrafted in a lot of CFF and I think C2C. I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't drafted in some of those. I know it's a little deeper than at CFF rosters and stuff like that, but still the fact that he's come that so far. And I don't know if he got a QB coach or a trainer in the offseason, if it's just the right system, if it's just him and Addison kind of doing this 1-2 punch. I would love to see both of them go to the Steelers. I mean, I'm not a Steelers guy, but it makes sense for them to be drafted and just kind of carry on the tradition there and just feed Deontay Johnson, who's my boy in Dynasty. So shout out to you, Deontay. To see, and I agree, I call him Sam the Hitman Hart for a reason, because he does. Sam's really good. I mean, he's not my favorite Sam. That would be Hal, who we'll talk about here in a few minutes. But Hartman, he has the tangibles. He's got quite the arm on him. He does remind me actually of Kenny Pickett a couple years ago before the jump up. As far as what he's capable of, is Hartman ready to come out? No, I think this next year at Wake Forest, I think if he can get back there and kind of do the same thing and just kind of get with a QB coach and stuff like that, I think Hartman can improve, but he's making some small mistakes, and those small mistakes are gonna cost him. So you have the 4th ranked overall offense in Pittsburgh versus 9th overall offense in Wake Forest, and they're both, as far as overall defense is concerned, Pittsburgh's defense as far as passing is 107 or 112th overall. So that's where it's going to get a little tricky, and that's where Wake Forest is going to keep it close. So you look for A.T. Perry, who might be someone that might be on someone's radar, and Devy. Of course, Roberson's still there, but Perry seems to be the guy that's kind of standing out the past few weeks for him as well. And they can also, but Pittsburgh, they're just high octane, and there's nothing stopping it. There's the passing defense over in Wake Forest is 118th. So Kenny Pickett is going to feast. I think Tazir Mack is not going to be able to play this one. So look for, what's his name? Wayne, the wide receiver 3. I think that's a good one. And also, Guy, once Addison is gone, I would look at Wayne, actually. They got a couple new recruits, I think, coming in next year, but Wayne looks like he might be wide receiver 1 here next year for those that are interested in Devy. So keep a lookout for Wayne in this game as well. But I say it's going to be Pittsburgh, man.
Yeah, I think both of that should be a very good game. And here's hoping that, we had that earlier in the year, that 9 overtime game with Penn State and Illinois where there's no offense. So I think it'd be exciting to get an overtime game like that, but where points are actually scored, So I think that could be very exciting. So we'll talk about something that's very near and dear to your heart. We'll talk a little North Carolina football. Yeah. I really like Sam Howell, coming out even before this year. And I think some people have been a little too hard on him this year based on a lot of the things that, happened with the team, and losing those receivers and those running backs. I mean, you're the North Carolina expert about that. So what is your
Yeah.
opinions on how and just what really went wrong with the team this year?
Well, first and foremost, and it's not, and I try not to be an excuse, but people over over. I think the expectation was too high for North Carolina. There was too much production lost. Let's look at Javonte Williams, who's now against the starting running back for the Denver Broncos alongside Melvin Gordon. We lost Michael Carter, who's on IR currently, but was doing very well for the Jets. We've lost De'Ami Brown, who's doing really good for Washington as a wide receiver too, behind Scary Terry. And then we lost Daz Newsome, who's sitting there waiting for his turn there. And with the Bears, they just need to get it together as far as their offense is concerned. That's a lot of production, man. And the thing is, Sam, he always finds a way to get better every single year, and he works hard. Sam's one of those guys, he does either community work or he's out practicing. That's pretty much what he does for the most part. That's how good of a person that Sam Howell is. But it also shows you his drive. Look at what happened with NC State. Yeah, they gave the game away at the end, but that wasn't Sam's fault. He fought tooth and nail. The man learned how to be a better running quarterback, to be a better dual threat, just because of the lack of consistency. Him and Josh Downs have a great connection, and Downs is going to be a great NFL player, I believe, as well. But look at the production. So it's I agree that, and I'll agree with some of the criticism. I think Sam has created a little bit of bad habit when it comes to that because of the lack of production, honestly. I feel after he looks for Downs, he really didn't look for Antoine Green, other than if he thought he had a big, shot down the field and stuff like that. So almost Sam has programmed himself to be first look, then run type situation. Well, that got him in trouble a lot, to the point to where his ribs were so banged up that he had to sit against Walford and, take a week off type situation. The man puts the team on his back, and, I'll forever love, Sam Howell for what he's done for this college and what he's done for, for UNC and for what he's done. But I don't think he's too far off from being a Heisman candidate still. I still think he's got great tangibles. He's still got a lot more positives than negatives. Yeah, he'll have to trigger in his mind the, first read, then run type situation. If he's going, he reminds me a lot of Baker Mayfield, man. Honestly, I think that's most of people's comparisons and stuff like that. And I really haven't looked into the NFL draft board as far as what he's coming out and stuff like that. But Sam's very capable of doing it. I could see him going to a Houston Texans, and if they program the right type of program and the good coach around him, I think he could really shine in an NFL system, just like Baker does, if you put the right pieces around him in a Cleveland offense, and then just put some studs around him. I think he's very much capable of that. I think he's not too far off. Yeah. It's been a 6-6. I mean, I get it. It sucks. I mean, it sucks for us as fans. I mean, I'm not suspecting at least be ranked by the end of the year, not sitting here hoping for a Duke's Mayo Bowl or something like that, but whatever. But no, I think Sam's great. It's just, yeah, he's done a few habits that he has to correct because of the season. But I think he's very much, if anything, a day two quarterback. I don't know if he'll go first round now at this point, but I definitely think he's day two for sure.
I definitely think he should go day one, and pretty much everyone's has that comparison with Baker. I think Howell has a little more upside, and one thing that I love about Howell, but he can't do in the NFL, is I love how he runs the ball, and he's looking to run over people and everything. Obviously, at the quarterback position, you can't do that, but I love what he does, and you could tell. I mean, to be totally honest, when the season went downhill, he could have been all right, I'm done. I've showed what I need to do, but he continued to fight. I think the Wake Forest game was a big one. They got down early, and he fought back. Maybe didn't have his best passing day, but he was running, and that team just went everything on him. So I still consider Sam Howell either quarterback one or quarterback two coming out, but it'll be interesting how the testing and all that goes on. So a couple other things I want to talk about North Carolina while I had you on. First of all, who do you think the quarterback will be next year? I was very impressed with Drake May in the spring.
Yes.
So I'm interested about that. And how long do you think they stay with Mac Brown?
So First, before I go on that one, I just want to say that some things that can't be tested, and that's hard, and that's something that Sam Howell has. And I know I'm going to bat for Sam Howell here, but that's the tenacity of that man. Like he just won't say die. That's the thing about Sam Howell. And so if like a team sees that about him when he interviews, someone's going to fall in love with him. So I agree. He might wind up back in the first for sure. But going into the future of North Carolina, so here's the thing, like. I think Drake May is the man for the job. He literally decommitted and told Nick Saban no, so then he could come play here at Carolina because he wanted to. I get it. Like at first, he wanted to be away from his brother Luke May, who's the guy that won the national championship in basketball for us in the Tar Heels. So he's definitely an alumni. But the May family is very much loved here in the community and stuff like that. But I get it. He wanted to make it his own. But the fact that he wanted to carry the lineage of the May family and of the North Carolina Tar Heels and come play for Mac also shows why Mac Brown should stick around for a little bit longer. I think, he needs to give a little bit more of a window. This is the first season that he's done this since the turnaround where it's been like a 6-6 and stuff like that. And honestly, some of it was stupid mistakes. A lot of it's the defense didn't live up to their recruitment level. Great thing is we have, I think, the number 8 overall national rank as far as recruitment and number 1 in the ACC. So that shows the power of Mac Brown. And so, I'm hoping that Sarkisian stays in Texas and Texas doesn't come call him Mac, because I don't want him to go back there just because they're feeling nostalgic and they want another national championship. I hope he can stay here like he did when he first came to Carolina and kind of build that tradition again. So we got some great people coming in next year. Drake May's the man for the job. He's different than Sam. He's not going to be the guy that he can run out, when he needs to, but he projects as an NFL comparison of Sam Bradford. And so, I call him Sammy Biscuits is like the joke that we called him there, the fantasy footballers. But Sam Bradford was known to, be dead eye, look, for 1, 2, 3 options and then make the proper pass. Drake May is very effective. He was in the Elite 11 program as well. So he's been coached up very well. Criswell, I saw where he got a little bit more in the Wofford game. And I think that was more of a, I think because Mac personally went to Criswell, whereas Drake was like, no thanks to Alabama. I'm actually going to come play for Carolina. Mac's like, heck yes. So now it's like, now he has his stud, but I think it was like a service to Criswell to be like, hey, it's it was like a senior day. It was like seniority type situation. You're the sophomore, you're the junior. Let's go ahead and get you in. Criswell is very capable. Don't get me wrong. I think he's great, but he was like a high 3-star, early 4-star, whereas Drake May is like literally like 4-star, leaning towards 5-star comparison. So, as far as tangibles and what's capable of, Drake May, that's the eye test. You saw it in the spring game, man. Drake May gets it done. I think he wins the job unless we see some crazy transfer stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if, I know a lot of people are saying Dylan Gabriel to, Ole Miss, but this type of offense always suits well for, a quarterback that's looking to, pad stats or looking at a good year and stuff like that. So unless something crazy from the transfer portal happens, I say Drake May 100% will probably wind up be under center before this is over. And then hopefully Criswell sticks around, but if he doesn't, the portal's there and, we'll, we have plenty of recruits coming in, so it is what it is. But I still say Drake May, man.
No, yeah, I think Matt Brown. I'm not saying he should leave. I just saw some things this year that seemed like they kind of crumbled in a couple games like that. NC State game, kind of some mistakes, and just obviously he's not a spring chicken. So I wondered how much longer he wanted to coach, but he's still bringing in good recruits. And I think it was just kind of a bad year for Howell's last year with them losing everything, and him not being able to have that supporting cast. I don't know much about the offensive line, but when I watched North Carolina, it did not seem very good at all.
Yeah, luckily we got Travis Shaw and Zach Rice coming in next year, who are like really top 2 as far as offense and defensive line. So we're definitely getting some beef coming up. And I agree, there's some things that Mac Brown will call that I think Longo didn't want to, or he had a different plan in mind as far as either go for a 2-point conversion, or hey, let's do this field goal, or take this one instead of we're 4th and 1, let's do like a QB sneak, let's get Sam back in there, let's get someone to follow Chandler and stuff like that. So I agree. Sometimes Mac Brown's a little bit of that old school mentality. You'll see it sometimes where he makes, because he is the head coach, so he makes the overall call, where I feel like sometimes you can see the frustration out of Phil Longo's face, and Phil Longo's, a genius offensive coordinator, he made that Ole Miss system flourish, and Lane Kiffin's just turning into like, something extravagant over there. And the good thing is we're getting these recruits now that we can kind of do what Phil Longo wants to do. But we're also going to see with some of the recruits coming in another thunder and lightning type system like we saw with Williams and Carter. We're going to see 2 guys that are coming in next year that could change the game for us and kind of get that back to like we had it. So then I think Drake May under center is perfect. So even if Mac does leave or he retires or something like that, I would love to see Longo do it. I know he may not be like a head coach type of guy, but if he would be interested, that would be amazing to have Phil Longo as a head coach and just find another guy in his system for the offensive coordinator for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I know we've kind of talked about the portal, so let's, as we've kind of discussed, in the Discord and, a little bit before the show, the transfer portal has probably been the most so far, after the season, just everyone going crazy. So I thought we kind of talk about, there's some big names in there and where we think they might go. Obviously, you'll look more at a fantasy production. But I think the most of these are high-end guys anyway that have NFL potential, so they would want to go to that system. So first of all, let's look at Jahmyr Gibbs. I know Bijan, is the running back that everyone loved for 2023, but ever since I started watching Jahmyr Gibbs, I've just loved his game. I think his style, is slashing, and he as good of a receiver. I think, he can do things like Kamara can do, in the NFL. I felt bad for him at Georgia Tech because that offense just was not functional. And you saw that, against Notre Dame and Georgia. So I know there's been some rumors, some Tennessee, some Alabama, and even Michigan State getting in the mix for a college fantasy perspective. Where would you want Gibbs to go?
So from what I'm hearing from people, like he loves the state of Georgia. So then you have Georgia fans saying, "Oh man, he's coming over here to Georgia," but they really don't need to. With Milton's still there, and I think McIntosh is still due for another season there so as well. Plus they got another 4-star guy coming in that is looking really, really good as far as coming out of high school. I think he's the 2nd overall running back behind the guy that Alabama got. Like I said, these guys, Alabama and Georgia are RBU, so they're just going to keep them coming. So I don't see Jahmyr Gibbs going there. If he stays in state, I mean, I don't see he has too much talent. So why would he go to Georgia State and drop down to G5? He could, stick around to closer states. So we're looking at Florida. I don't know if Jashaun Corbin's that guy anymore. I would love to see Gibbs at Florida State. That would be very intriguing to me. Maybe even Florida, honestly, Florida U, especially if they go with AR-15 with Anthony Richardson and have Jahmyr Gibbs in the backfield. That's scary, and I love everything fantasy-wise for that as well. I don't know if you saw the poll, but it's like he's getting some good traction as far as like Zach Evans versus Jahmyr Gibbs as far as who would you want to take. It got very close in voting. I think it was our guy, Phil McGee, who does the FBS Fantasy Foot. He does all the injury updates and stuff for us. Thank you, sir. You're a godsend, and I appreciate you doing that for us. But it got pretty close. Like I think Evans only took it like 58-40 something. It was fairly close. So I mean, Gibbs at Florida State. Hey, if he wants to transfer to Carolina, that'd be fine. I'm good with that. But I don't know if he fits the system too good. But I do see I see a good fit at Florida State, honestly, and at Florida. I think that'd be pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think just his skill set, he can. I mean, you would think anyone could use him, just because he can run it. You could have a bigger back to take, most of the beating, give him maybe 10 carries a game and then give him like 5 to 7, receptions and everything. And I just think if he gets on a better offense, which would not be that hard because Georgia Tech's offense, especially from the quarterback position, has just not been very good lately. So it's not so they can't just totally focus in on him. And from a fantasy perspective, also, I hope he doesn't go to Georgia because it's always a mess with Georgia because they always play 3 running backs. And you can't really play any of them because you're just hoping one falls in zone and they have very little ceiling.
Yeah, Georgia's good for DFS purposes, but when it comes to normal CFF, it's one of those those rooms that you just avoid completely. It's just like, no, it's not worth it. They can, I'll take a waiver on him if he gets hot or something like that, but that's it.
No, I definitely agree. I kind of feel like they're kind of like the Patriots of college football and how they use
Yes.
running backs.
Yeah. Is it Harris? Is it Stevenson? Or is it Burt? I guess Burkhead's not there anymore. But anyway, you know what I'm saying. Is it Bolden?
Yeah.
Which one is it going to be this week? That's kind of like Georgia for sure. The Kirby Smart plays that Belichick type thing. Yeah.
So now another, you mentioned
Yes.
Zach Evans. I did see that Sonny Dykes was reaching out to Zach Evans.
He's
So
trying to keep him.
so we'll see if he keeps him. We've kind of seen. I think Evans has kind of gotten over the knucklehead type thing. But
Yeah.
he seems like he kind of tends to waffle a little bit back and forth. But maybe with that new system, they can get him in. I'm very interested if he does leave TCU where he would lean, because I just cannot get a read really on where he would go.
And you won't. I don't disparage the great name of Zach Evans, but he does give me that OBJ type feel as far as not over dramatics, but you know what I'm saying, like demands the attention of the audience. And I don't think TCU gave him enough glitz and glam, if I'm being honest with you. Good thing is he made TCU like 10 times better immediately, because that's the greatest get that TCU's ever got was Zach Evans. And it's sad to see him leave. And now we'll see a TCU rebuild without, no Rager, no Evans or anything like that. But it's hard to read, man. I think he's going to look at the bigger programs. He's going to look to see if he can like slide into one of these bigger. I don't see it being Clemson. That's too, crowded. Georgia, why would you do that? You know what I'm saying? Like Alabama, there's Robinson, from what I told. I mean, he's still, I don't know if he's back or not. I've heard rumors of yay or nay. We'll see how it goes. But like, it's too stuffy in the bigger programs. Like, so he did good the first chance. I hope Dykes can get him back at TCU. I heard he I don't think it would make sense for him to go to Texas with Bijan there or anything like that. But it's hard to read, man. It really is. What if he went West Coast, man? Like, what are your thoughts, man? Do you think Riley gives him a call? Because every time I see one of these big names, now automatically it's like, is Lincoln Riley going to call this guy?
Yeah, I
Like,
definitely agree.
because he might.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because look, they have Keontae Ingram, and I think Ingram's good, but he's just finishing the season. He's the graduate transfer from Texas. You know what I'm saying? Like, he couldn't get the job with the Longhorns. Zach Evans is a night and day difference between a Keontae Ingram. So imagine that band in the backfield, and then you got to deal with Bryant, and then I'm pretty sure Hazelwood probably decommitted on purpose, because I think Hazelwood's probably going to wind up back up in California. So he'll probably wind up at USC or something like that. So we're looking at USC going from WAC to, being in contention against Utah next year, probably for the Pac-12 championship. So I don't know, man. That's always in the back of my head. I think he might, just go make a splash at one of these schools that just haven't been like top of the thing just yet, but very close of getting there, as far as a playoff contention, and just makes a big splash, and then come on, Southern Cal in LA. That's a lot of attention, man. Like, it's either there or maybe UCLA. I mean, maybe he can go up against and join Chip Kelly's system. I know they're losing Charbonnet, and then Britton Brown's been decent, but that could be an option too. So
Yeah, both of those are good. And I think the USC is good too, because I don't know if it was ever, I mean, there's rumors at least where he said that, he only, when in that recruitment with Georgia, he only won a certain amount of carries each game, kind of preserve his body. And I think at USC, they'll have lots of talent. And then, Lincoln Riley can feature him, but maybe only get him, 15, 17 touches and have other parts. So I think that's a good call. And I do wonder too, would he kind of look at LSU with Brian Kelly going there?
Yeah, that's true.
That could be another kind of flashy
Yeah.
thing. And Brian Kelly uses those running backs. Look at what he's done with Kyron. So I think that could be exciting. So I think for Gibbs and Evans, it's everyone's watching for where they're going to go, because they'll probably both be in better. Well, Gibbs definitely be in a better situation. Evans, you would think he'd be in a better situation. But
coming
both
back
of
to
those,
TCU would be good. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's fine. So, all right. So next, Spencer Rattler. I mean, we all knew he was transferring. My opinion on him is he needs to go to he's going to go to a Power 5 team, but if I kind of see maybe not one that the pressure isn't going to be there, because I think the pressure at Oklahoma maybe just like wore on him in like because you're always going to have that great backup. and the fans kind of turned on him. So like maybe a middle to like, not top tier team that you can kind of work on his reputation, get his stats up so he can go to the NFL. So I'm very interested on your opinion on Spencer Rattler, and can he, he was probably drafted pretty highly, even on just CFF this past year.
Yeah, he was a big time bust. It definitely sucked, when you're. Luckily, I didn't get a hold of him. It was between him and Mo. I took Mo Ibrahim. Of course, that sucked because I lost Mo after one game. However, you roll with the punches. But now that I look at it, I was able to, I lost Mo. I was able to get Tyler Beatty from Missouri, and he had a fantastic year as a senior. And then, I lost Dylan Gabriel, but I was able to pick up Peyton Thorne from Michigan State, who's done pretty decent as well. So, like, the waiver wire is your friend in CFF, we always say. But, yeah, of course, Rattler, first round guy. Definitely didn't do it. He was in Heisman talk, didn't do it. It's not too far off to see this guy take the Malik Willis route, where he goes to a mid-major. I don't think he would go as low as like a Conference USA per se, or he would drop down to G5. I know he's from Arizona. I don't know if he would. I mean, Jaden Daniels, or I don't know how you feel about him as quarterback and as far as like Devy and production and stuff like that. But between the two of them, I think Spencer Rattler could take the job at Arizona State. Arizona's in desperate need of talent. If they got like a good quarterback, some of those wide receivers might be interested in going. I think Stanley Berryhill has been the standout there at Arizona with the Wildcats. Has been the only true production there the past couple of years. So to see Rattler to go to Arizona there, and then my sleeper, I think, is Garbers from Cal is leaving. So the California Bears would probably be a good option. They actually have some decent talent at running back and some okay recruits at wide receiver, good 4 stars over there. A couple 5 stars might follow him over there. So if he's going to, live the Cali life, and that also means that he goes up against his old coach from time to time as well. And let's go ahead and put the narrative to bed. He's not going to USC when he got benched by his own coach. Why would he want to go again? And then someone like a Keller Williams transfers because he's on the fence, or even Jackson Dart, who I love. Jackson Dart, I think, could beat out Spencer Rattler if we're looking at a QB battle. It's the eye test. It's just what I see. And when it comes down to it, Spencer Rattler is not a terrible quarterback. It's his attitude, and it's the way he approaches life and he approaches the game. He looks at it as a job and as something to make money. He needs to look at it as life. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's his livelihood. He needs to be a dog. You know what I'm saying? He needs to have that tenacity and that mentality. And I think we see it sometimes. There's quite a few plays, especially against Texas, where him and Caleb Williams both had to, persevere to get the job done because Texas was not holding back. That was a beautiful Red River rivalry that we saw. So, I could see him in a couple of those schools. I know he loves Arizona. He wants to go back home. So there's Arizona State, but I still think California might tempt him to go to Cali somewhere. I don't know, but it's not going to be USC, people. So quit saying that. That's not happening.
Yeah, I've seen that too. They're like, oh, he's falling. I mean, he got benched. I don't know why he would do that. And yeah, I like the schools you said. And another one out in California too that might be interesting is if he goes and plays for Chip Kelly at UCLA.
Yes, that's another one.
So I definitely think he might go out west, but I think too, although his value has gone down, I think it's still salvageable. Unlike another quarterback, I'll just mention DJU. I picked him very early in a C2C, and I don't know if you'll ever get value back for him just because he just looks so lost. At least Spencer Rattler, we've seen multiple games of him playing the high level last year and a couple this year, and it looks like maybe he just needed this, to get knocked down a peg, and to kind of get his attitude kind of fixed and kind of more focused. Maybe that'll help him with DJU. It just doesn't look. I mean, maybe it's partially that Clemson offense because it just looked bad this year, maybe, but he just did not look right. So so definitely with Rattler, and I think there's another, Chip.
Yep.
So I was actually surprised he was transferring. Were you surprised?
Yeah. I heard no rumblings of him wanting to leave. I mean, I know there was the whole 2 running back system thing, and I don't know if he just wants to be featured. He would be a good replacement at TCU if Zach Evans doesn't go back. I would love to see Chip here at TCU, or just one of those blue blood schools where they just ground and pound. Because him by himself, which it seems like that's the case for him, or he just wants to be showcased more. He's definitely he already did really well there, as you can see, as far as like the jump up in production, and that's him splitting time, so imagine what he can do as the bell cow situation. I don't know. He seems to be a little bit more elusive than Eno. I mean, Eno Benjamin was one of those bowling ball guys. We call them like the muscle hamsters of the world that just ran downhill and hit you as hard as they could go. Chimp definitely has some great talent as far as both catching and running out the backfield with great elusiveness. He's got quick hips, man. So if he can go to a spot like TCU or just one of these guys that'll just feature him, he's going to jump up as not only in CFF rankings, but he's also going to jump up as far as a marketable running back that people can look at in Devy too. So,
no, definitely. The only thing I can think of with him is he just wasn't thrilled with getting less and less time this year with the with Rachaad White, who was playing very well. So they'll be very interested. But I think he's going to be he can be a feature back at pretty much a bunch of schools that have opportunities, and I think it'll be really interesting. Maybe even with Florida getting Napier, he likes to run the ball, and if he doesn't really love the running backs they have, maybe he takes a look at him, or like you said, Florida State or some of those big heavy run teams. And we'll just talk a little bit about Lincoln Riley going to USC. When I saw that, I was floored. I mean, the deal. I guess you've heard like the details of his deal to USC. It's crazy. The money, the jet, how they're paying for all the houses and everything.
They're helping him move and everything.
Yeah, I get it, and it's going to be really, for the most part, because I've kind of talked about Oregon earlier, how they always seem to shit the bed, and now it gives legitimacy to the Pac-12, because you got to figure Lincoln Riley, once he gets that system going, they're going to run that Pac-12 again. I mean, I would assume. Oh, yeah. So do you think he's going to stick with Jackson Dart, or I guess it depends on what Caleb Williams does, and a lot of these like recruits, they come to USC, but it could mean Jackson Dart's going to be on the move also, depending on how that goes.
Yeah, if from what we've been told as far as people on the inside of Oklahoma, that Williams is definitely on the fence. So we're talking Caleb Williams. I think he enjoys Stoops being there. So, of course, Oklahoma has to wait for the bowl game. I think he's just going to do what he needs to do as a quarterback and stick around and make sure he doesn't put Oklahoma in a tizzy like Lincoln Riley just did and finish the season as their freshman QB. And he's going to pad his stats and he's going to look, but if he does go, Caleb Williams in that offense still, and just the fact of thinking about him with Bryant, and then if we get Hazelwood back and get some of his boys that he's already played with, and not to mention USC, like we're talking about all these decommits now. People are talking about how all these 5-star, 4-star wide receivers are decommitting from Oklahoma, but most of them have come out of California. I find that pretty suspicious, by the way. I don't know if you read into that narrative that maybe he was looking to go West Coast before it became cool. I know he plays it there, but let's be honest. Like, I don't think Riley wanted anything to do with the SEC. I just didn't think he wanted to. He didn't want to go to LSU. He didn't want to take on Nick Saban. He just didn't want to be in the conference. He saw the Pac-12 as a way to, establish dominance over on the West Coast. And granted, like I get it. Like in his conference, he just wants to do what's best for his family. And I agree with that narrative. I don't hate the man for it. Of course, I'm not an OU guy, but from outside looking in, like it looks like he was just trying to give his family new experiences. He's, the money was really good. It's hard to say no. And they're literally giving him the reins to literally have at it. Like in this game against, I think they're playing the makeup game with UCLA this weekend. He literally gets to sit there and like take notes and, get used to some of these players. He might fall in love with Jackson Dart and might not even call Caleb Williams, which I don't see that happening. I think like if anyone's thinking about transferring, I think Riley's going to call him. But at the same time, like, maybe he might see the tangibles that Jackson Dart can run his system, the way he wants to. And then it's Jackson Dart to the moon. I'm talking Devy. I'm talking Dynasty. I'm talking, CFF. It don't matter what format that you're in. If Jackson Dart is the guy in the Lincoln Riley system, that man's shooting up boards real quick. We're talking like probably first round, early second round in CFF drafts already. So, and that was Jackson Dart just beating out Slovis. Slovis would be a great fit at like Western Kentucky or mid-major going to Liberty or something like that. Slovis is still decent, but he's nothing like Jackson Dart. Dart's the man. So we'll see, man. But I play into that narrative. I think Riley just didn't want anything to do with the SEC, and he can get to the, he wasn't going to get stopped by a Georgia or a Alabama. With the Pac-12, he has an easy way to get into the college playoff scenario, and he can play his way. And then all he has to do is worry about getting to the championship game and fighting, the SEC. Then basically it's just one game versus multiple games a season,
Yeah, definitely. I've heard rumors and rumblings that kind of, and it makes sense, because since he wasn't going to be in the Big 12 anymore, and he probably didn't want to deal with the SEC, which I get. I don't really understand. For especially like Texas, they can't win in the Big 12, so I don't know how they're going in the SEC. But so we're about to close, but I know we kind of talked about this, but just give us a couple freshmen we should be kind of looking out for.
Sure. So over at College Fantasy Football University that I'm over at, we not only do prize picks where we pick selections as far as fantasy points perspective, so it gives you that CFF feel, but able to win money on a daily basis. Not only we're doing that, from the whole season, and now we're doing the championship games. We'll have some of that coming up here when we record, and then of course we'll have some bowl stuff. But something that we're bringing this year is what we call the Future Freshman Series. So what we're doing is trying to get ahead of the game as far as being able to kind of showcase some of these higher star recruits, and we'll start in 2022, but we've already started to dig a little bit into 2023. So those that like Arch Manning and those names that you hear coming up, you'll see some of that probably in the off season. And I'm on the search for a co-host for the off season as well. So as soon as I find the co-host that I choose, we're actually going to do some of this. So for future freshmen, what we're doing is we're showcasing some of the current guys that are coming through. So a couple guys I want to bring up. The one that's the top one that we're looking at, his name is Luther Burden III, and he comes out of St. Louis, Illinois. He's 18, 6'1", 200 pounds, the 5-star recruit. He was the number 1 wide receiver coming out this year. He did commit to the Missouri Tigers. He was graded 91 in ESPN, 99.6 at 24/7, and he's considered a 6.1, which is a franchise player over at as rivals. His comparison is Chris Godwin, which I think is a great comparison because he does have that stock build. And Luther Burden has probably the strongest hands in the class. He's that raw type form. Like he can play any position, but he's big enough at 6 foot and 6'1" as far as to take the advantage over everyone. He's just pure power and speed. And the good thing is that we saw that Missouri has a lot to work on when it comes to the defense. However, they're getting some great players. And I'm not a fan of Connor, who's their quarterback right now. I think he's more games manager. They got a guy named Sam Horn that's coming in next year as their quarterback, and he is a dual threat. So not only does he have a gun on him, but he also can get down the field. So if you think of, a little bit beefier version of Sam Rattler, I'd say that would probably be a good comparison to Sam Horn. Sam Horn's going to find this kid early in offense. So LB3 is the guy that can make sense now as far as CFF coming up next year because they have no one. Kiki Chisholm was a bust, and he's no longer with the program as well. They lost their tight end to the portal literally 2 days ago. So it's literally there is a wide open field. And so Sam Horn and Luther Burden III are 2 names from Missouri that you need to pay attention to. My other favorite one, and this might spark some interest, is we have a guy called Jahan Dotson coming out of Penn State who's going to be a great I'm sure he's been a Devy guy for a long time now, but he's in Dynasty and in redraft possibly for next year. I'm even seeing that he's moving up, I think, McShay and I want to say Mel Kiper's board, maybe not Mel's, but McShay's. I think he's moved up to the first round comparison. But Jahan Dotson's replacement's coming in. His name is Caden Saunders, and he's actually from Westview, Ohio. Kid is 5'10", 175. He's the 4-star recruit, and he has a comparison of Tyler Lockett. So if you like guys that can get out as far as separation themselves, being able to have elusive hips, be explosive after the catch, and have strong hands, you're going to love this kid. He might play out of the slot maybe his first year, freshman year, because that's what he's most comfortable with, but he can play outside. They're projecting him to be an All-American and someone that would be enticing for those that love a good gadget player like Tyler Lockett, the guy that's a speedster but can get it done as far as good catches and getting open quick. So they're just some of the names that I'll bring up, but it's something to look forward to when you're listening to the CFFU podcast going forward, or, something that you'll see. We'll have it in an article form. I think we'll be able to launch a website here pretty shortly to be able to do those. So I'll give you the scoop first that we might be, doing a website and the Future Freshman Series here, but just a couple of names to look forward to. The wide receiver class is looking really, really good replacements. And then if we're looking at running back, the two guys are coming into Carolina, George Pettaway and Mario Hampton. One of them is literally Mario Hampton is considered, and there's one, if you look up on YouTube, they call him the Saquon Barkley of high school. So if you like guys that just produce points and stuff like that, the dude went for over 1,948 rushing yards in just his senior season. So he's been over 3,000 yards in 2 seasons alone. So the kid's a monster. And then Pettaway is that elusive guy that can produce. And the good thing, what I'm doing is I'm taking a lot of these stats in their senior season and being able to convert it into like fantasy points. So we're looking at like a Pettaway and Hampton on average are about 20 fantasy points per game. So if you're looking at that perspective, getting in, to Devy and looking forward to something, that can produce for you, you might be looking at a new 1-2 punch here for Carolina coming in next year. So kind of pay attention. Drake May is looking really good for those in the Devy community. So be looking out for Carolina, man. Mac's making moves, at least in the recruitment field. So we can't hate him for that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Hampton. I've watched some of his film,
Mm-hmm.
and I really like him. So he's definitely one. And I'm talking about Penn State. They might finally have their quarterback with Drew Aller coming in.
Yep.
So
you have Saunders as this guy, yeah.
Yeah, so definitely. So those are great, great names, and I'll be really excited to check that out when that comes out in the off season. So Brandon, I would just want to thank you for coming on so we could have Brandon squared.
Yeah, man. Be squared for life.
Yeah. Yeah, so thank you very much, and that's going to
Absolutely.
do it for episode 3.